What's going on, guys? This is the Kentucky Prime Sports Podcast. My name's Devin Hood here with Gibb, Tyler, and Burke. We're going to talk to you guys a little bit tonight about the aspect of the Kentucky football season, how we think it's going to be looking, the transfers we got coming in, as well as a little bit of Kentucky basketball. We unfortunately laid a little bit of an egg against Ohio State, so we're going to hit a little quick recap on that, see how we're feeling about starting out conference play in the SEC, guys. First thing first, though, we're going to talk about our transfers we got coming in. Zach Calzada, we think that's going to be QB1.
Yep. Yeah, I think he's definitely getting brought in to play quarterback for us. I like what he's got film-wise from the SEC games he did play in, and I don't really look at. I mean, he had good film at Incarnate Word, but not a lot of competition down there.
Right, it is Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought they were Incarnate World.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounded a lot better, I think. Maybe do a little name change there.
I hadn't even heard of them, honestly.
I'm hoping there's at least a little bit of a QB battle between him and Cutter, because Cutter gets thrown into the fire against Louisville, with a terrible offensive line. So I feel like he should at least get somewhat of a battle for that starting QB position.
Yeah. Well, talking about Zach Calzada real quick, last season at Incarnate Word, like I said, not a lot of great competition, but he did have a 65% completion rating, threw for 3,744 yards, 35 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Also added 332 yards and 5 touchdowns on the ground. That really looks like a Bush Hamden type quarterback.
So that's hard to argue with those stats.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the big thing we've always heard coming in is he wants a guy that is mobile, can move the pocket around and take off if he needs to. That 332 yards and 5 touchdowns really seems like it's what he's looking for, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, we haven't really seen Cutter have to run a whole lot. I mean, he seems athletic enough to do it, though.
Yeah. He can run a little bit.
You just haven't seen a whole lot of Cutter in general.
That
One
is
game
true.
against Louisville and a half against Florida. So,
Which, I mean, that was kind of always the thought, too, was, Brock's coming in. We're going to have Brock Vandegrift for 2 years. Cutter Bowley's going to learn under him. So, maybe this is just kind of a continuation of that.
maybe.
Get him another year under his belt. I mean, I don't think it's a terrible idea.
No, definitely not.
I mean, as we've seen before, you can never have too much depth at the quarterback position. You end up with a wide receiver playing quarterback.
I think KSR had a stat saying that in the past 8 seasons, we never had a quarterback play or start a full season and not have a backup come in.
In how many years?
I think it was 8 years, something like
Good
that.
Lord. Yeah, I mean,
Steven
that sounds
Johnson was
right.
the last quarterback to play or to start every game and not get injured or have his backup come in.
Yeah, which, I mean, there were some games he got killed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the diving touchdown against Tennessee where he does like a full helicopter twirl in the air.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised. That was a good, durable quarterback, though, Steven Johnson.
Liked him a lot.
Yeah, he was great.
Definitely my top 5 QBs of all time at UK.
Yeah, but, like you said, start thinking back, Drew Barker
Yeah.
gets hurt. Patrick Toll's hurt.
Will Levis gets hurt.
Will Levis is hurt, yep. Yeah, so, I guess it has been a while since we've seen, a Kentucky quarterback go through the whole season and be able to make plays all season for us.
Right.
What do we think, Stone Saunders coming in? That's another, potential decent quarterback that we've got in the quarterback room.
Yeah.
Gives you that depth you're going to need.
Yeah.
He broke, basically all of the Pennsylvania high school state records, so...
Yeah.
I think he might actually be a little better than Cutter, honestly. So
Yeah, coming out of the gate.
Athletically, he's definitely a much more mobile quarterback.
Yeah. Well, if we got the quarterback battle figured out, Zach Calzada or Cutter Bowley, however that ends up being, we definitely have picked up some weapons at wide receiver after losing Dane Key and Barryon Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about Dane Key for a second. We've talked about it a little bit off the podcast. Dane Key to Nebraska.
Did not expect that.
Very weird.
No, I mean, for a guy that comes out and says, hey, I want to play for championships and I want to go to the NFL, I don't think Nebraska is the place that's going to happen.
No, I thought for sure he was going to take Georgia just for that sole reason of getting that ring.
Yeah, I mean, he at some point said, he visited Georgia, visited Ole Miss. I mean, those are 2 top-tier programs in the country where, Ole Miss always seems like they're one player away.
He could be that missing link.
He could be that guy. Lane Kiffin likes running a high-efficiency offense, so that's somewhere you think he really would have thrived. And then Georgia, we all know what Georgia is.
Yep.
There's no better place to get seen by the NFL than one of the top programs in the country.
Right.
So, I think he was worried more about his workload or something, maybe not going there and being a star, being a backup, wide receiver 3, or even bench guy coming off.
Yeah.
You think that's a possibility and why he went to Nebraska, or do you think it was just money?
I don't think it was money because, from what I've heard, Kentucky offered him, a very well-compensated NIL package. I think I heard Kentucky's NIL compensation was above what Georgia was offering.
Oh yeah, it was. I think it was well above. What I heard was $800,000 is what Kentucky offered him to stay, and then I think I seen somewhere that Georgia was $300,000 or something like that.
Yeah. So at that point, if they say, "Hey, we want you to come in and you're going to run reps with our twos," at what point do you kind of bet on yourself and say, "Hey, I know what I can do. I know what kind of player I am. I'm going to the NFL." So, I'll take that wide receiver 2 spot at Georgia, and I'll work my way up.
It can't be forgotten either that Kentucky's wide receiver coach also went to Nebraska this offseason, so maybe that has something to do with it.
That's one thing that we have heard. I was under the impression the wide receiver room didn't like DeKel Shorts.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's kind of what I always had heard. Maybe it was just a player issue, I guess, more than anything.
Right. We have heard, there was some issues in the locker room this year, so maybe a couple bad seeds kind of ruined it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, they do have that relationship already. I hope the best for him. I wish him well. I just don't see that Nebraska is a big step up.
No.
That was some talks on Twitter this week. Historically, Nebraska is a better program than Kentucky. Sure, but it's not the 1990s anymore.
Yeah.
Right. We're not running the wishbone.
No, if you look at the last 10 years, and we talked about it earlier, you got to look at the last 10 years in college football.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at something before the guy we're talking about, Dane Key, was even born.
Right.
So you got to say, in the last 10 years, Kentucky's probably been the better football program.
No doubt.
No doubt, yeah.
You look at records side by side. Your record is what you are, is what the analysts always say, right?
Mm-hmm.
A couple 10-win seasons, bowl games, how many, 8-year bowl game streak that we had going on. And, there were some pretty down years out there in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Maybe it's just a swip swap. We took Wandale from them. They take Danke from us. We're even now.
Well, that was funny. Whenever Wandale transferred to Kentucky, they said, this was going to be a one-for-one swap for a player not yet named.
Yeah. Danke was that one player not named.
Yeah. What they didn't take into account, though, was Dante Dowdell coming to Kentucky as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tyler, what do we think about Dante?
I think unless somebody, as up to now, I think he's the best running back that's been in the portal. He's got great upside. His film's amazing. His vision's really good. Great size, speed. He's a Kentucky running back. Looks like a Kentucky running back. Plays like one.
Yeah.
Super excited for him. Best get so far in the portal for us.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. He seems like a Boone Williams, Benny Snell, Chris Rodriguez type running back.
Explosive running back that we just
somebody's going to hit the holes.
Few years.
Yep. Somebody's going to hit the holes hard, play every down, fight for yards, keep churning, right?
Right.
Him and Wilcox are going to be really good next year together if Wilcox is staying.
Yeah, which we haven't heard anything. Knock on wood.
Speaking of running backs, we'll be facing a former Kentucky running back week 1 next year.
Week 1 against the Toledo Rockets.
Chip Trainum.
That's a downfall that really has to be studied. You go Ohio State, Arizona State, Kentucky, Toledo.
It just keeps getting...
It keeps getting worse.
Yeah.
And, for a guy that, I don't know what he was ranked coming out of high school, but I assume being recruited by Ohio State, he was a pretty high ranked
guy. Up there.
Yeah. Probably 4 or 5 star guy, and you're finishing out your college football career at Toledo. Not dissing Toledo. They're a good football program, but, not really somewhere you want to be if you have NFL aspirations, I wouldn't think, at the running back spot.
Right.
How do we feel about that week 1 matchup against Toledo?
I don't think we can drop that one. It being week 1, it being at Kroger Field against, a mid-major team, I feel like that one is all. I don't want to say a gimme, but I feel pretty confident about that one.
Feel confident? What do you think if Kentucky comes out, let's just say it's a 35-14 win? How does that make you feel inside, Burke?
I'm okay with that. Coming off this past year, didn't really get in the end zone a whole lot. 35-14, if we put up 35, I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
After this past year.
What do you think, Tyler? 35-14. How's that grab you?
That's typically about how Stoops will beat a MAC team, a good MAC team, which is a good win. I mean, if Stoops likes to get up 28-10, something like that at halftime, and then we run the ball the rest of the game, and we end up scoring another touchdown, maybe two in the second half. That's typically a good sign of a well coached Mark Stoops team. So as long as it's nothing crazy, I would take that. I think almost everybody would sign up for it because flip side of that, I think fans are off the ship.
Yeah.
If we lose week one, it's over week one.
Now, let me ask you, we'll change the number on that a little bit. Instead of 35-14, let's just say 24-10.
I think...
that sounds like a boring game. Just saying 24-10, Kentucky beats Toledo week one, that sounds like something I'm not very happy about personally.
No.
Yeah.
Sounds like you'd be in for more of the same in Kentucky football. Another sluggish offense, decent defense type year, which we've seen too much of.
It doesn't raise that excitement for me if that's all we score against Toledo.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. I mean, we've talked about defense. I don't think defense is anything anybody has any questions about. Brad White's going to come in. He's going to coach a good group. And defense isn't the concern. It's coming in and seeing what Bush Hamden in year two is. It's seeing what, either Zach Calzado, Cutter Bowley, the running back, the wide receivers, what they can do, right?
Yeah. The saying last year was Bush Hamden didn't get the guys he wanted.
Yeah.
He was not coaching guys that he was, keen on playing with. So he ain't got that excuse this year. They went and got guys that he wants. So, I expect a lot out of the offense this year.
That is true. And so one thing, too, we'll talk about real quick, talking about guys that Bush Hamden wanted. Malik Murphy was a name that popped up in the transfer portal that we thought Kentucky was going to target, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ends up, not committing to Kentucky. Commits to Oregon State, but still has not signed paperwork.
Yeah, something weird's going on there.
I mean, that's definitely just got to be an NIL issue at that point, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I think, KSR talked about it yesterday or today. Kind of crazy that Duke moved on from him.
Yeah, I don't understand what they were doing there. I don't get the problem. He's mobile. He's got a great arm, great size. I mean, he literally looks like the perfect NFL quarterback style.
Yeah. I mean, he took them to 9-3 this year. If you're Duke football, you've got to be ecstatic about that, right?
And money shouldn't be the issue with Duke, seeing as they signed that quarterback and are giving him $4 million in NIL money.
$4 million.
4 million smackaroonies.
Tulane's quarterback, I think, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of zeros.
That's a lot of zeros.
I mean, it makes you wonder. I mean, Tulane, obviously had a good season this year. Makes you wonder, though, what they see in him that they didn't think they were going to get out of Murphy.
It makes no sense. I have no explanation for that to where it would make any sense to me.
Do we not have a Duke insider that has all this knowledge?
I don't know. We'll have to reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe we can send one of our guys undercover.
Might have to.
I'll say not many Duke fans around here.
No, I mean in Duke football especially. I don't think those exist.
I'd never heard of a Duke football game before.
No. And so that's what I'm saying. 9-3, and you're moving on from a quarterback. You're paying a guy $4 million.
Sounds like they might be getting too big for their britches.
Right? Are they going to start looking to dethrone Clemson in the ACC? Is that what we're going for there?
I mean, if you want a good football team these days, just pay for it.
Yep. That's all you got to do is pay for it. Talking about some wide receivers, though, real quick. Kendrick Law, 5'11", 201 pounds, former top 100 recruit, top 5 player in Louisiana whenever he was coming out of high school. Picked Alabama over Florida State and LSU. Tyler, you said earlier this is drawing some Barryon Brown comparisons for you, right?
Yeah. I think he's a big time Barryon Brown comparison. Probably a little more physical. Can get upfield a lot quicker than Barryon. Definitely looks for contact instead of looking to
get away from it.
Across field 40 yards. So I think a definite upgrade from Barryon to this kid.
Yeah. One thing, too, that I noticed, I watched a little film on Kendrick Law. They played him in the jet sweep quite a bit at Alabama. That was something you seen Bush Hamden try to get set up for Barryon Brown time and time again this season, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if he done that at Alabama, you're going up against stiffer competition every day in practice. Hopefully that's something that translates to Kentucky because I really like the jet sweep motion whenever he runs it. It's just like you said, Barryon Brown didn't really look for contact. Somebody starts coming at him, he's looking to cut it back, maybe take it the other way.
Yeah.
that's not what you're looking for necessarily all the time.
You want north and south, not east and west.
That's
Hopefully
right.
You get some linemen that can actually pull for those plays this year, and some receivers that want to block too. We had a big problem with that last year.
Yeah,
Guys not blocking on the edge.
I think we had a problem with blocking, just general
Yeah.
receivers and offensive line.
Well, that was one thing we talked about it because we went to a couple games this year. It just seemed like at times the wide receivers didn't want to play ball.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to the Murray State game before they made the change from Brock to Cutter in the second half. And, I mean, the wide receivers just jogging down the field, not looking to get open, not turning their head to look at the ball. You know, they're just not making plays out there that look like they're ready to, you know, score the touchdown.
No.
And that kind of circles back to maybe it was just a locker room issue all along, you know, with guys not wanting to actually go out there and compete.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And how many of those guys actually checked out? Because, you know, a lot of them gone in the transfer portal. A lot of them have already jumped ship, abandoned ship.
Yeah.
That is true.
So why would I go out there and get hurt for a team I'm not
I don't
trying
care
to
about.
compete for? I'm not coming back to.
If I had to guess, and this is just speculation, I'd say a lot of those players checked out after that bad loss against Florida. I'd say a lot of them like, well, it's not going to get any better from here. I might as well just go ahead and save myself and, you know, not do what's best for the team.
I would even maybe go a little bit farther than that and say it was probably Vandy.
You think?
Yeah,
I do.
that Vandy one hurt.
Yeah, because, I mean, you got to think. At that point, you know, you had beat your cupcake, quote-unquote, teams. You know, you take that bad loss to South Carolina, but you come back the next week, you beat Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you played Georgia tight.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to be feeling pretty good about the season at that point. You get Vandy at home, and you think, hey, this is a game we're going to come out and we're going to, you know, see what Kentucky football is really about this year. And, you know, obviously didn't go their way. So I would say at that point maybe they were like, wow, you know, this just isn't going to work this year.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
That Florida game was rough to watch, though.
Yeah.
Felt like a little bit of old school.
Yeah. I mean, it was at that point of the season, Florida, Auburn, they just started gashing us for, you know, 10, 12 yards a run.
Yeah.
And that was something, too. You know, we talk about Brad White's defense always being, you know, top-notch. I do really like Brad White, but there is times his defense just leaves a lot to be desired on the field. You know, you got a guy that's running 12, 15 yards at a time, you just can't stop him.
Yeah.
Yeah, secondary work gets a little sloppy from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
I see a lot of, like, this year they struggle with, like, a lot of gap integrity, like, just not filling the holes in the run lanes, waiting or getting outside their run lanes, and it was just leaving massive gaps for these backs that are very talented in the SEC to just, I mean, a split second, it's 8 yards for them in the blink of an eye, so.
Yeah.
You got to be disciplined, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, and that's one thing, too. You know, going into the season, we thought, you know, we're going to beat Florida because they're not good. The season started. Auburn looked terrible, and we're like, okay, we're going to beat Auburn, too. And then at that point, you know, already checked out of the season. And these teams that we went in and thought, hey, you know, we're going to continue this streak over Florida. We're going to get a big win over Auburn, one of the SEC, you know, former West teams that we really struggled with in the past. And that just didn't come to light for us.
Nope.
Moving on, next wide receiver. This is the one we talked about as well, being a potential Dane Key replacement. J.J. Hester, big 6'4" wide receiver, big-bodied. He had originally committed to Missouri out of high school, where he was teammates with Jamori Macklin, and then played for then wide receiver coach Bush Hamden. So that's one that our offense has a lot of, you know, continuity with. That's been a big word we've seen this offseason, continuity, right?
Yeah.
So how do we feel about J.J. Hester having that relationship with Bush Hamden already and Jamori Macklin?
Can't be a bad thing. He's not a ton of film on him. I mean, he looks okay. Athlete.
Yeah.
Good measurements. Checks all the boxes other than, you know, solid game film.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, we don't have a lot of game film because he has had some injury issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's what worries me is can he stay healthy?
Yeah, we had a full 2024 season out of him. He had 14 catches, 315 yards, 1 touchdown. But if you're hurt, you know, he spent the last 3 years at Oklahoma. If you're hurt the majority of that, I mean, you got to feel good just getting on the field at that point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Tyler said, I like the size. I like the continuity. You know, Bush Hamden brought him in, so obviously he remembers, you know, coaching him, likes the kid. But I think that'll be the big thing is just seeing if he's able to stay healthy especially in the SEC. He did spend the last 3 years at Oklahoma, but they just made that move over to the SEC this year.
Struggled in the SEC.
Struggled mightily.
Other than Alabama.
Yeah, well, a blind squirrel's going to get a nut every now and then.
You're right.
Which it seemed like a lot of teams got nuts this year against Alabama.
Most time against us.
Yeah. That Florida game.
Oh, God.
A lot of nuts to be found.
A lot of nuts to be found. So, to wrap up our football, and we've already kind of touched on this, but I'm going to make it a little bit bigger picture. How do we feel moving into this year with Stoops? How confident are we in his ability to come in and win games, but more importantly, win the fan base back over?
I feel like he's got to work his way from the bottom up. The support is at an all-time low after this past season. When you lay an egg against a pretty bad Florida team and a really bad Auburn team with the talent that we had.
Lose to Vandy
at home.
Again.
And, playing the same exact schedule, just switch this next year.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time getting back on that train.
Yeah, speaking of Vandy, they have as many SEC wins in Kroger Field as Kentucky does at home.
That should not happen. Should not happen.
Tyler, what do we think this year about Stoops? How are we feeling? Just overall in general.
I think it's much like the Missouri, show me state. It's a show me year for Stoops. Just, we'll see what happens when September rolls around.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything. There is nothing that he could say to get everybody just fired up and ready to go. I mean, I'm going to be there week 1, ready to rock like we're going to win it all. But in reality, that's show us.
Yeah,
we got to see a good product on the field.
He's got to put up or shut up this year.
Yeah, and that's been the big thing.
Up. Yeah,
pony up. That's been the big thing that Tyler said. He's there's nothing he can say necessarily that's going to get the fan base back on his side, right? But Mark Stoops, there's nothing has come from him at all since the end of the season. We've not heard from the guy.
I've not heard from him.
No.
I mean, he obviously knows the climate of the fan base right now. If I'm the coach of Kentucky football, I'm doing every PR stunt that I can to get out there, get to the fan base, show them that I'm invested, in this team, and getting the best possible outcome on the field. He's got a long time here between now and spring practice, and then obviously week 1 of the season. I'm spending every day that I can trying to get the fan base back behind me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a thing where he's just kind of putting his head down and just grinding. Trying to get the program back where it needs to be without saying something he shouldn't say. Just keeping his head down and going on with it.
You mean like pony up?
Like pony up.
Nose to the grindstone, like Tyler Childers, right?
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
I don't know why he hasn't reached out to us to get to the fan base.
Right? I mean,
I feel like we've got our finger on the the heartbeat of this thing.
Our phone lines are open.
Yeah, Mark Stoops, if you're listening, don't hesitate to reach out. Message us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
Whatever.
YouTube. Send us an email, fax, letter. We'll accept it all.
Yep.
We have an open mailbox here. If there's anything you want to say, get off your chest, right?
The backbone of the fan base right here.
Yeah. Speaking of getting off your chest, Vince Marrow, officially or unofficially, I don't know. I feel like I've heard this all offseason. Staying at Kentucky.
For the 5th time.
For the 5th time, he's staying at Kentucky. There was a part of me that, I didn't want him to go to Louisville. I didn't think that was going to happen anyway. But when Bill Belichick at North Carolina reached out, I was like, maybe this is our out.
When I heard the Belichick news, I thought, in Vince's mind, he's thinking, all right, this is my opportunity to take that next step and maybe, hopefully, with Coach under Belichick, get to the NFL at some point. Is kind of what I was thinking from that whole situation. But, I'm glad he's staying. He's a heck of a recruiter.
This team doesn't roll without Vince Marrow, I don't think.
No.
I don't think Mark Stoops has, not necessarily the leadership, but I don't think he has the same pool.
The people skills like Vince has.
Yeah,
you gotta have your right-hand guy.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
And Vince Marrow is a great right-hand guy.
Yeah.
You can't deny that.
I mean, it's not a lot of people poke fun at at it and say like, oh, he wants to leave, and it's but it's never a bad thing when other big schools are coming after your guy every chance they get.
Yeah.
That means he's doing something right.
For sure. Speaking of doing something right, John Summerall has not taken a job this offseason. Said he's committed to Tulane. He doesn't want to leave. He's riding with the green wave, right?
Yeah.
You got to wonder in the back of your mind, as a Kentucky fan, knowing he played at the University of Kentucky, coached at the University of Kentucky, he's waiting for this job to open up.
It's very possible.
Maybe he's doing that just to set up a future leap, at the end of next year. If things don't go well with Kentucky and Mark Stoops calls it quits, he's kind of putting himself in a position to take that job if it opens up.
Yeah, because, there for a long time it was John Summerall to North Carolina.
Yeah.
At one point I thought it was, the deal was very close to being done. And then, he comes out, says he's going to stay with Tulane. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he's waiting just for Kentucky.
Right.
And, I wouldn't be mad at that because I think no matter what happens next season, good or bad, I think we're coming close to the end of the Stoops era.
Yeah. There's a light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah, from a fan standpoint, I would love for that to end in a, 10-win regular season.
And he just rides off in the sunset.
College football appearance,
yep.
Playoff appearance, and then, like you said, maybe win a game, win 2 games, win a national championship, something light. And then, like you said, just rides off into the sunset. John Summerall comes in and, just keeps the train moving.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think we're going to win a national championship, so if you're listening to this, don't call me an idiot. But, I do think, good or bad, the end of the Stoops era is approaching.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
Yeah.
And, you start looking at coaches. I don't think there's a better one right at this moment out there that would take the job. And, I think that's where it really comes into play whenever you say that would take the job.
Yeah.
Obviously, if Dan Lanning wants to leave Oregon,
yeah,
I'll take him.
Yeah.
It's,
Yes.
if you're going to force him on me, I'll take one of the best coaches in college football.
Yeah.
If Nick Saban wants to come out of retirement and come coach the Kentucky Wildcats, I guess.
Oh, I think Nick Saban's pretty comfortable nowadays.
He's having a blast.
He's
on
having
game
the time
day.
of his life.
Him and Pat McAfee, I think they're boys.
They're best
Who
friends.
would have thought he had so much personality?
Right?
They're best friends.
But if you look at the landscape of college football, you got to have somebody that's going to be, hard nosed in there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the boys in line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, obviously that's what Kentucky was missing this season.
Yeah.
Somebody in there to, slap a few heads around, call them knuckleheads, and tell them what was up. Moving on, though, since we talked about, how we feel about Stoops and the football team, spoke on John Summerall, Kentucky basketball. Moving on with our Lord and Savior, Mark Pope. What we got, Gib?
Before we hop into that, I got one question for y'all.
Let's hear it.
What type of scheme would you like to see Kentucky run next season? Since we've been talking about weapons and everything, you want to see a more pass-heavy? You want to see more of a traditional just run-heavy offense? Or you want to see that blended kind of best of both worlds? Or
I would like to see something kind of like a blended system. Something, not as far back running the ball as we were with like a Terry Wilson, where he's throwing it, 9-10 times a game. I think that's not enough in this modern college football. I would like to see, 20 to 30 throws a game.
respectable.
I think that's a nice number to get if you can get, a perfect stat line. Let's just say 18 for 27.
Mm-hmm.
18 for 27, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns. That sounds like a perfect quarterback line to me.
You can't draw it up any better.
Yeah, and then, whatever the touches come out to with the running back, perfect world, 15, 16 carries for your starter, 105 yards, another touchdown on the ground.
Yeah, I think all of college football in general is just getting away from that power running back scheme that was so dominant for who knows how many years. And I think it's time to kind of make that transition to more of a pass-heavy offense more so than a run-heavy offense.
Kind of modernized.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
With
the
the times.
thing that comes down to is just athletes on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, this isn't the 1990s Nebraska team where your defense, is just, a bunch of big guys that can stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
You've got guys that are flying around on both sides of the ball, making plays, athletic,
You got to have those
players.
athletes that can, cover, those athletic wide receivers,
Yeah. What do you think, Tyler? What kind of scheme would you look for next season, or if you were the head man?
Well, if I definitely want to see them kind of get back more running the ball. I'm a big fan of like the 2018 style offense that Eddie Grand ran. That's what we've had success with. When it's worked, that's what we've been doing. I think that Calzada is it Calzada?
Calzada, yep. Zach
Calzada.
Calzada. Calzadi.
I thought it was Calzone.
Yeah. I think he fits that type of system, which is kind of what Bush runs anyway. But Bush at Boise, it's kind of like that Eddie Gran style, a little more play action. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing the quarterback throw it 22 to 25 a game.
Yeah.
But the backs I'd like to see them getting like 25 to 32 touches a game.
Yeah.
But I'd really like to see Kentucky get to running like probably close to 75 plays a game, 72, 75. I think we're in like low 60s most of the year.
Yeah, that's one thing that I feel like Mark Stoops has talked about for a few seasons now is getting that tempo up. You know, we talked about it under Liam Cohen. That first year under Liam, you know, they had really good tempo. It looked great. Second year, obviously, he leaves. Rich Scangarello comes in, and you think you're going to continue with that up tempo, and he was even slower than one of the Eddie Grant offenses that year.
Yeah.
You bring Liam Cohen back, you're expecting another up tempo offense, and he kind of did similar to what Rich Scangarello did, slowed the ball down a whole lot. Devin Leary experiment obviously didn't work, but it just seemed like they were taking forever to get up to the ball. They were huddling every play.
You want to keep the defense on their heels. You don't want them catching their breath and keeping up with you on defense.
Yeah. And that's what we see a lot. You know, the best offensive teams out there, you know, they're running plays quick. Your Tennessee, your Ole Miss, you know, they're
no huddle offense.
Not giving any time for these defenses to come through and say, okay, well, you know, I'm getting a good look at the offense. I think this is what they're doing, right?
Right.
Those guys are, I think, also running a system, too, that is getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands quick, and they have the talent to do so, and they have the receivers, you know, they're getting space and running the right routes and running, you know, the same speed. And there's consistency there for the timing.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, too, with like a Josh Heupel offense. You know, Nico, I'm not even going to try to say his last name, but, you know, he's a good quarterback, but he's not there yet, right? But they're not giving him all these options of, hey, look at your X, look at your Y, look at your tight end. You know, they're saying, hey, you know, take this read. If it's open, hit it.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, especially, you know, Zach Calzada has more experience, but, you know, coming back to the SEC, going to Kentucky, is just making a simple playbook that he can say, okay, once I snap the ball, I'm looking here and here. You know, not really leaving all this room for error.
Right.
I think that was one thing, excuse me, that Devin Leary and Brock Vandegrift especially really struggled with is, you know, they're looking downfield. They're looking for all these guys to get open. You know, they're making these reads on every receiver. They're reading the defense. And at some point, you just got to say, hey, you know, get the ball out. Our offensive line is terrible. You know, look for your first open guy. If he's not there, you know, make a decision.
Yeah. The long developing plays is like, you know, Bush, the play action, which is what, like, Bush's system he really likes to do a lot of that. The only problem with it is it's a longer developing play.
Yeah.
So now you got to have a better offensive line, and you're up in the whole play by 2 to 2.5, 3 seconds. So, and that's a long time in football.
Yeah, that's forever.
Yeah, that's a long time. So I think that if we got to know if that's going to work in week 1 or 2, like the play action stuff. If it's not going to work, let's put this thing in shotgun and
give our guys time.
Let's go out of there, you know, and no more play action. Let's let him make the reads and not play the game of, you know, what kind of team we want to be, the identity crisis all year like we just seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that was huge this year. Seeing, you know, well, hey, we're going to have Brock come in for two drives. Then we're going to have Gavin Wimsatt come in and see what he can do. You know, actually, we don't like Gavin Wimsatt anymore. We're going to bring Cutter Boley in. I agree with that.
Absolute disaster.
Week 1, you know, decide what kind of team you want to be, see how it looks. If it doesn't work, go to something that's going to set your players up for the most success they can have.
Mm-hmm. We should have known it was coming after the whole rain delay thing. It was just going to be.
It was going to be a weird season.
It was going to be a crap storm of the year, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Which, speaking of the offensive line, you know, I'm not going to go through all the transfers they've got on that side of the ball, but they have seemed to make an effort this season to strengthen the big blue wall.
Oh yeah, they had no option. No option. They had to do it.
It really, you know, Eric Wolford. We know he's a recruiter. That's why Mark Stoops kept him on. But we got to see how he can develop these guys. You can't expect guys to come from Western Kentucky and, you know, not Bowling Green, but wherever they got their, you know, all these other offensive linemen from, they may be good offensive linemen, but you still have to develop them to your scheme and develop them to play in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving into basketball, obviously, like we talked about at the beginning, Kentucky basketball gets thumped by Ohio State in Madison Square Garden. 65-85 win for the Buckeyes. Not something I was really expecting.
No.
Not at all.
It's like I was saying before we started, there's a blueprint to how to beat Kentucky basketball right now. And It's just that hard-nosed, in-your-face defense. And it makes it to the point where our best shooters can't create their own shot.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's just we're not as talented as some of these other SEC teams or what, but we got to find a way to get around that hard-nosed defense and look for guys to get their shots.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, Kobe Brea, he's got to get it. He's got to get open.
Should be our best shooter on the team.
Yeah.
But he can't create his own shot.
Yeah.
He's got to wait for somebody else to kind of make it for him.
Yeah. And one thing too, I've heard throughout the week, I think we missed 26 layups in that game.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That should not happen anywhere in D1 college basketball.
No, I mean a layup is something you learn whenever you're starting playing developmental basketball.
How many wide open layups Jackson Robinson missed?
Too many.
Too many.
A ton.
One too many.
I mean, we only made 17 field goals.
The whole game.
So there wasn't too many times it went in besides the free throw line.
Yeah. I mean, that was really, like you said earlier, Gib, that was what was keeping them in the game.
That was the only thing that was keeping us halfway close. If we didn't get to the line every possession, we would have been destroyed by 40, 50 points. It would have been awful.
And a big thing, too, this team obviously likes to play fast. They want to get the ball up and down the floor. They want to make that three. Ohio State's point guard really set the tone.
Yeah.
He decided how that game was going to be played, at what speed it was going to go, and Kentucky could never take control and play the speed they wanted to play.
Yeah.
It's like a game of cat and mouse. They talk about it in football all the time. Basketball operates the same way.
Yeah.
And too many times during that Ohio State game, I'd say pretty much the whole game, we were the mouse in that situation. Ohio State was the cat they were attacking.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of games this year where, it's obvious that we are not a very good defensive team. Guys are constantly balling past our defenders, not playing very good defense. So there's going to be several games where we just have to outscore the other team. And if we play against Florida or Auburn, like how we played against Ohio State,
we're going to be
it's going to be a dog walking.
Yeah.
I mean, 11 points off the bench.
That's a big drop off from whenever our starters go out to our bench comes in.
Yeah, so their point guard goes out, like you were saying, that he conducted the whole thing.
Yeah.
Once he goes out, we sub out a couple guys. That's whenever we should have
Yeah.
shooters come in. We should have people that can come in and actually score points.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Brea, there was only 3 other points scored off
on the
of,
bench.
4 people playing?
Yeah.
3 points between 4 guys. Yeah, not a lot of them had, double-digit minutes. But Garrison had 17 minutes.
Yeah.
He had, 2 points? Not saying you, have to be the scorer. You can be a good defensive threat.
There's other ways to have your team besides scoring 20 points every
Right.
night.
But at a certain point, you still need to at least get a couple baskets.
Yeah.
You need to get some kind of momentum going.
They're constantly. Matt Jones constantly says we need that one guy that can go get a bucket anytime we need him to.
Yeah.
And we just don't have that right now.
Watching the games of so far this season, I really thought we had a few guys that could be that guy that goes gets a bucket.
I thought Owe could be that guy.
I thought Owe could be the guy.
And I was hoping Robinson could be that guy.
Yeah.
But
Lamont Butler.
Butler even. But neither one of them has really showed that they can be that guy to go get us a basket when we really need them to.
Yeah. Which, talking about Ohio State, I don't know if you all have seen this, but fun fact, Kentucky has not beaten Ohio State since the 2011 tournament.
Yeah.
Whenever we beat
I'm
them.
sitting here looking at the picture where we beat them, the Brandon Knight shot.
An unforgettable night.
Unforgettable night.
Yeah, I mean, that, for Kentucky basketball, you've got to beat Ohio State.
I was in the 6th grade when that happened. I'm 26 years old now, so I would have been 12, 11, 14 years since we beat Ohio State.
That's
unacceptable.
Yeah, which, I mean, albeit we don't play them all that often.
Very often, yeah, that doesn't happen very often at
But we've had opportunities.
We've had too many opportunities. And, unfortunately, this was one that Mark Pope's squad kind of let slip through the fingers from tip-off.
And that's something about Mark Pope. You go look at his BYU days. He may have a night where he beats Kansas by 20, 25.
At Kansas.
Yeah, and then he'll lay an egg at home against UCF.
Yep.
It just happens. It's not really an explanation as to why, but it's just kind of a developing pattern.
Yeah, it's frustrating. As much as we all love this team, love what Mark Pope has done, it's frustrating to see how well they can play and how many points we know they can put up, and then to come in and only score 65 and get beat by 20.
And you gotta cut Pope a little bit of slack. He put this team together in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Didn't have an entire offseason to put this team together. And, the transfer portal was kind of slim pickings at that point.
It was.
So you give him a little bit of leeway this year, but now next year we've seen he can recruit the guys. He can recruit those dudes.
Yeah.
So next year I'm kind of expecting a lot more.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've got a heck of a freshman class coming in. You've kind of got to assume some of these guys that are on this team are going to be back. I don't think Travis Perry, Trent Noah are.
I don't think they're going anywhere.
No, I don't think they're a flight risk. Colin Chandler.
No,
I think he's going to be back.
I'm really hoping Owe gets another go next year.
Yeah,
I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I think he'll be back.
I think what's going to hurt Owe is he's been great. He's put up some awesome numbers. What is he averaging a game? Like 16
per game. Yeah, 16 points per game, averaging 3 rebounds. Little over 1 steals, turnover, not even averaging a full turnover. So, solid.
What's he shooting from the field?
From the field goal percentage, that's 50%.
I really thought it would be lower than that.
I did too.
I was going to say, well, yeah, we may not get him back after hearing some of that. But I was going to say, I feel like lately, most of our games we've seen, he's, 4 for 16 from the field. He's been scoring the points still, but he's taken a lot of shots.
Yeah.
And so I think that may be something that maybe, he gets called on at these NBA draft combine workouts.
What's really going to hurt him, too, he's only shooting 36% from the three-point line.
Yeah.
And that's what NBA scouts look at.
Yeah, which I don't know who watches the NBA anymore.
Not me.
We've heard all week about, the NFL on Christmas. That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great watching NFL games on Christmas. Never had the first thought about the NBA.
No.
Not even a little bit.
I said we always go to my grandma's on Christmas Day, and 99% of the time there's an NBA game on the TV. Not this year. It was all NFL this year.
Yeah. And, we're not going to get into the weeds of that because we could be here for hours talking about where the NBA has fallen. But, they're not putting a product on the screen that people want to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest thing is players just take games off.
Yeah.
And you have the franchise player setting out half the games of the season. Yeah, a lot of them don't matter, but if I was a fan that actually went to a game, and I was like, hey, I want to go watch LeBron play. I want to go watch whoever play.
Then LeBron's in sweatpants and a T-shirt.
Yeah, they're just sitting down.
I can't
having a good spot.
I can't help think of the family that's saved for years to buy tickets, upper level tickets to some of these NBA games just to see their favorite player play, and he's just taking the night off. Don't feel like playing tonight.
Yeah, and one thing too, I think that the college game is getting right versus the NBA. I've seen clips lately. NBA team comes down, they shoot a 3, it bricks off the rim. Other team grabs the rebound, comes down, they jack up a 3. You get 6 or 7 threes jacked up, no shots made in the span of 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not even running offense at this point.
No offense.
They're just coming down. Whoever's got the ball is shooting from the logo, essentially. And, hey, if it goes in, that's great. If it doesn't, we'll get it back in a minute anyway.
Yeah. You'll get it back in 30 seconds.
I'm the all-star shooter. I'm going to shoot whenever I want, where I want.
Yeah.
And, I went 1 for 14 tonight from 3. But, I can have better games. We'll just do it again.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of games throughout the season. You can see it a different night.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of issues with the NBA. Like I said, won't get into the weeds of that tonight, but
just had to get on a little rant.
Yeah. So, Kentucky has Brown coming up. I mean, I hope this is a game where Mark Pope, kind of lets the dogs of war out.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a revenge game.
And Pope has handled this completely differently than Cal Perry would have. If this loss had happened and Cal was still the coach, first thing we would have said, don't worry.
They're young.
We are built for March.
Yeah, they're young. We didn't, it's Christmas.
We didn't even work on defense this week.
Yeah, we're going through Coach Cal in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Whenever we're off on Christmas, we're going to get our guys right. We're going to lose some games in the SEC. It's a tough conference, but we're built for March.
Yeah. But with Pope, he was absolutely sickened by this loss.
He was.
He said we played bad. We could not handle their defense. It was just a bad performance overall. And he has said we need to look at our game plan and see what we need to change to have a better outcome. That's why I'm all for Pope. A coach that will actually coach instead of just rambling on.
Yeah. No, I think Pope is definitely what the fan base needed.
Yes.
It's
a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
For sure.
Even after the Ohio State loss, I still haven't lost any confidence in his ability.
No.
No, not in him or even the team. That's just basketball, dude. You're going to get blown out every now and then.
Yeah.
You just got to hope you can rip 6 off at the end of the year. That's it.
Yeah. And, especially the kind of basketball he plays, if you're not hitting your shots, it's going to be a rough night.
And that kind of reiterates my point from earlier. Like I said, Pope built this team in 3 weeks.
Yep.
He doesn't have 5-star recruits. Yeah, he's got the seniority that we haven't had in previous years, but we still ain't got those couple guys that can go get a bucket, put the team on their shoulders, and just go get a W.
We don't have Jasper Johnson on the team yet.
No.
We'll go ahead and name drop him.
Yeah.
And, like you said earlier as well, Bert, I think this comes back to, we have to have our guys get open, make their own shot.
Yes.
One thing that Lamont Butler, whenever he comes out of the game, ball movement,
stops.
It looks terrible.
It stops.
Yeah, they don't look like they know what they're doing. You got guys camping in the corner. Looks like a Cal offense a little bit. You've got guys just waiting for the ball, hoping that their guy's not going to be close enough to them, they can get a shot off.
And something too, I love Travis Perry to death. I know he's a Kentucky guy. He grew up here. He's probably going to play all 4 years here. He does not need to be out there right now.
No.
He looks like a scared puppy when he's out there.
Yeah.
That confidence is just absent entirely.
Yeah, and hopefully, over the long Christmas break here, I don't know what their practice schedule looks like, but, hopefully he's getting some reps in because there is going to be times this year in the SEC where we need him to come in and potentially play some valuable minutes.
Yeah.
The SEC we know is a physical league. Lamont Butler, is going to get into some foul trouble.
And maybe that's why Pope's playing him now is to, get those jitters out of him.
Yeah.
In November and December, so that way when SEC comes around in January and February, he's more prepared for it.
Yeah. Speaking of the SEC coming around, starts up in a week and a half.
Oh.
First game against Florida. That's a good-looking Florida team.
They're undefeated.
Yeah.
Still undefeated.
That's for next week's podcast.
We'll hit on it a little bit.
We're just hitting at right now.
Yeah.
Just a little tease.
Just a little tease. Florida, they're a good-looking ball team. They had a big lead on North Carolina, kind of let them come back a little bit, but ended up, getting the dub out of it all the same. That's going to be a good first test for this team coming in.
It's at Rupp, right?
It's at Rupp.
Yeah.
That's one that you have to get a win in the column.
That can determine the rest of SEC play. How that Florida game goes. If we lose by 1 or 2, I'm not worried as much. But if we get blown out by 20, I'm getting a little scared.
Yeah. Like I said, we won't talk too much about it tonight because we will save it for next week.
Yeah.
But I think that's one you got to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
It's a must win.
Must win, must watch.
Yeah, must win, must watch. Like I said, Florida has played North Carolina. Apart from that, they've not played too many good teams like Kentucky has with Duke and Gonzaga. I'll even throw Louisville in there. But that is one that you want to see Kentucky come out and really control the pace. I think that's going to be the big thing. Don't let Florida get you uncomfortable in your offense.
Yeah. Play your game. Don't play theirs, play yours.
And I think that's what we'll leave you with tonight.
I think so.
Play your game.
Play your game.
All right, guys. This has been the Kentucky Prime Podcast. Make sure you follow, listen along. Like the Facebook page. We drop a little bit of recruiting news on there. Anything that pops up throughout the week that we don't have time to film a podcast for, we drop on the Facebook page. We appreciate everyone's support. Have a good night.
Go Cats.